end of the book. We finished. Oh God. Welcome everybody to Muggles and Mocha for the last chapter of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I am thrilled that we are here right now. And yeah, I mean, you already know this. I've been so excited for this, and today we finish book 2. In celebration of finishing a book, you know that I'm always ready for our end of the book feast, and I'll get even more ready for that in a little bit, you will see. But for now, I have my big celebratory mug of tea. It always looks so light because I do put creamer in it, but it smells amazing. It's that Harney & Sons tea that I've told you about before. So yeah, I'm pumped. I am ready to get started. Let's get to it. If you're new, you're coming in right on the tail end of book 2. This is our Harry Potter book club where we're going through every single one of the Harry Potter books for years or however long it takes. This book club is connected to my editing website, MadisonKDarby.com, and I do have some social media on the website and also in the description box below. If you want to follow along with us, I post news updates there as well as hints of what is to come in the future, and you can find that all below. Also, if you enjoyed this video today, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel where you'll be updated every time a new video drops. But yeah, I really can't believe it. We are in chapter 18, which is called Dobby's Reward. And let's just jump into this. The last chapter of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Last video, we actually ended in the middle of chapter 17 with Riddle disappearing. So Ginny wakes up and she sees Harry covered in blood. As usual, as these books go on, we see that there is a very common theme at the end of every book where Harry is just like beat up and hurt. Ginny confesses to him what's happened, and in reference to our conversation about Ginny last week, as far as what she experienced with the diary, what she saw in there, she says here that Riddle made her do things and that he took her over, which just reinforces what I was saying last week about how the diary works with possession and how that's what Ginny Weasley experienced during this terrible first year at Hogwarts. And I love seeing the effects that this experience has on Ginny afterward. She becomes such a strong-willed character. And, you know, I think that a lot of it has to do with what she goes through in this first book. And I also love how we come full circle with this idea in The Half-Blood Prince. When Harry is listening to his potions book and relying on it, Ginny has a big problem with that. And yeah, I just think that that's a very neat part of her character that we see come back later on in the series. Ginny and Harry meet up with Ron and Lockhart, who has lost his memory at this point. And I wrote an article about this. I'll link that video above. I always get it wrong, but I think it's this way. From here, we have Fawkes again, just being awesome. He lifts them out of the Chamber of Secrets. And I looked up phoenixes again, because if you'll remember last week we talked about Fawkes coming to Harry in the chamber, and I'm not surprised he came to the chamber because there is obviously a very big connection between Fawkes and Albus Dumbledore. But I just wondered about Phoenix's intelligence, how he knew to bring the sorting hat, if he expected the events that were going to follow that with Harry pulling the Sword of Godric Gryffindor out of the hat. I couldn't find anything else about the intelligence of Phoenixes, so I'm still very curious about this and just the potential that Fawkes has as a character, as a magical creature. But while I was researching Phoenixes, I found a lot of neat information about the relationship between Albus Dumbledore and Phoenixes in general, thematically, and I totally am going to be writing an article on this later on. I don't want to give too much away, but it's an article I'm really excited about for far in the future. Harry, Ron, Ginny, and Lockhart make their way to Professor McGonagall's office, which caught me off guard because I'm so used to them going to Dumbledore's office in the movies that I forgot about this. Harry tells everyone in the office what happens, and bless his heart, he can't bring himself to talk about Ginny's involvement. And honestly, I think this was my favorite scene of the book when I read it this time around. Harry looks at Dumbledore and is kind of stumped for what to say about Ginny and Tom Riddle and everything that happened. And Dumbledore seems to instinctively know what he's thinking and feeling. This is actually what the book says. Instinctively, Harry looked at Dumbledore, who smiled faintly, the firelight glancing off his half-moon spectacles. "What interests me most," said Dumbledore gently, "is how Lord Voldemort managed to enchant Ginny when my sources tell me he is currently hiding in the forests of Albania." And Dumbledore just takes this weight off of Harry, and it says later on that Harry feels a lot of relief from this. And I think it's just such a kind gesture and just shows the developing relationship between Dumbledore and Harry. And I want to talk about this for a second. I was just listening to a podcast where someone just finished the book series. It was very fun to listen to. But there was a lot of controversy about Dumbledore's character that comes up in that last book, as you guys know. There's questions that come up like, did he really love Harry? Did he use him as a tool in this plan? Like, was it fair for a kid to be put in this situation and not get all of the facts and things like that? And a lot of people get mad at Dumbledore for this, and honestly, I'm excited to analyze Dumbledore's character again and decide what I think about it at this point in my life. I read these books when I was younger. I was like in middle school the first time. And so, you know, the first time you read something, your initial thoughts about it tend to follow you through the rest of your life and maybe sometimes taint the way you would view things later on. So yes, I'm excited to take a look at Dumbledore and decide what I think about his actions. But right now, thinking about it, I just really like that Dumbledore is portrayed as I think all characters should be portrayed, and it's as a person. And people are complex. They don't make these cut-out decisions that you think they're going to all the time. In the early books, we look at Dumbledore like Harry does, with awe and respect, and with this idea that he is perfect and wise and doesn't make any mistakes. But you know, as Rowling shows, everyone has struggles and a past, and they aren't perfect. But here in this scene, I think that you can really see the genuine care and love for Harry that Dumbledore has. And the way that we view care and love sometimes comes in the form of protection. And while I think that Dumbledore definitely did that, even though Harry was put in a lot of dangerous situations that kids shouldn't be put in, I think that his love manifests itself in the way that he is able to understand the trials that this kid is being forced to go through. Like, it's not Dumbledore's decisions that Harry is being put in these situations, it's Voldemort's. And his decision to attack Harry all of those years ago and view him as an equal and an enemy. And Dumbledore is just by Harry's side through all of this, and is like a partner that can be there to guide him through this life that he's been given. But yeah, I just wanted to say all of that because here I think that we get a brief glimpse of this connection that Harry and Dumbledore share that will develop even further throughout the books as Dumbledore is aware of this destiny that Harry has that Harry doesn't fully understand yet and doesn't really understand until the end of the book series. But anyway, ramblings over, back to the chapter. Dumbledore explains to the Weasleys and everyone in McGonagall's office about Tom Riddle and Voldemort. The Weasleys are horrified, but Dumbledore just does such a great job of defending Ginny and saying that like powerful wizards have been fooled by Voldemort for years and years. So Ginny is an 11-year-old girl who was just in a bad situation. So I really appreciated that from Dumbledore here. Then we get my favorite parts of the book series, which are our Dumbledore conversations. Dumbledore starts by talking about something that we've discussed a couple of times throughout this book, which are the similarities between Harry and Voldemort. And these similarities haunt Harry throughout the book series. This book is the first time that Harry notices them, and then Tom Riddle points them out. So his worst fears are realized when he sees the legitimate connection that he has with Voldemort and even the boy Tom Riddle, that they are alike in a number of ways. And it starts in this book with the whole Slytherin idea. And I think that it's very interesting that when Harry is defending himself to Dumbledore, saying, you know, me and Voldemort aren't alike. He says, but I'm in Gryffindor. This just brings up what we've talked about when it comes to Harry associating Slytherin with Voldemort. You know, I don't entirely blame him for doing this because, first of all, he's 12. Second, it's one of the first things he learns about Slytherin is that Voldemort came from there. And so I think that when Harry first encounters these fears of possibly being in Slytherin, it's him associating himself with Voldemort. Like, that's where Voldemort is from. And in his mind, being a 12-year-old boy, you know, he simplified it to this connection. And like, if I can just be in Gryffindor, then it means that I'm not like Voldemort. I didn't come from the same place that he did. And it's just so interesting to see how he clings to that within this book. And the possibility of being in Slytherin troubles Harry because it almost makes these similarities that he's learned about between he and Voldemort real or unavoidable. But Dumbledore gets to the crux of the matter and says that Harry chose not to be in Slytherin, which makes him different from Voldemort. And reading this time around, I wanted to dive into what this really means. I don't think he's saying that people who choose to be in Slytherin are bad, that that's a bad choice to make. I love you Slytherins out there. My husband is a Slytherin. We've been over this before. You know, it's not saying that those who want ambition or choose to chase after power, that that's a bad decision to make. What Dumbledore's saying here is even more beautiful than that. Because he's saying that even though Harry and Voldemort do have similarities, and even though there are things about Harry, or all of us, that we're born with, or that we inherit, or that seem to be in our lives that we can't escape from, he's telling Harry that even with all of these things, that he forges his own path, that these choices that he makes are not small details, like they're a big deal. They're what make Harry who he is more than these things, more than Parseltongue or being an orphan or, you know, being attacked by Voldemort and being chosen, as we see later on, to have this destiny that he has to accomplish for Voldemort to be conquered. Like, all of these things don't make him who he is. It's what he chooses to do and the actions that he's willing to take that really define his personality. You know, that these similarities don't confine him to following Voldemort's steps. These choices show that Harry and Voldemort are guided by different passions and goals and things that are important to them, and that they'll always choose differently because of these core differences. That Harry is able to love people and wants to defend people and just has one of the most caring hearts in that he recognizes people individually and that they should be seen as human. And I think it's also very beautiful that we get Dobby in this book, because something that makes Harry special when it comes to the wizarding world is that he views all magical creatures as worthy of respect and worthy of being recognized as people, which is something that Voldemort just doesn't do. And then we get our famous Dumbledore quote, which is, "It is our choices, Harry, that show who we truly are, far more than our abilities." And this quote, honestly, gotta pick up the rant stick for this. I know, I feel like I'm being like really intense and emotional in this video. I don't really know why, but here we go. This quote, it means more to me now than it ever has. Now that I'm older, reading this quote, especially during these last couple of years of adulthood and whatever, it means a lot to know and to understand that, you know, we all have varying abilities, things that we try to make define us, but in the end, we are in charge of our own life, and you can make decisions, and that's who you are. It's not these things that people put on you. And wow, didn't know we were going to go into this place today, but yeah, this quote's just been important to me for the last couple of years, and I hope it's important to you to know that you're more than what other people see you as, and qualities that people see in you. It's down to what you do. Did we just get into like some sort of motivational talk? I don't know. Maybe we should get back to Harry Potter. That might be nice. But enough of that. Back to it. Dumbledore also encourages Harry that he does belong in Gryffindor by showing him the Sword of Gryffindor, and he tells him that the Sword of Gryffindor only appears to true Gryffindors, which is all he says about it. And of course, this sword is going to be super important throughout the rest of the series. And before we move on from Harry and Dumbledore's conversation, we need to talk about how important this moment is for the rest of the books. It's important right now because Harry is getting a grasp on who he is. Seeing this bit of magic, Tom Riddle's diary, is the first time that Dumbledore suspects that Horcruxes are involved in Voldemort's master plan. And the nature of this Horcrux is what makes Dumbledore believe there could be more than one. And what I mean by that is, and I've talked about this in a couple of articles before, but this diary was made both to hold Voldemort's soul and also to be used as a weapon to open the Chamber of Secrets, which means it's a very reckless Horcrux. I mean, as we see in this book, the diary is put in danger and is destroyed because of this mission that it has. And because of that, Dumbledore believes that, Voldemort is not a reckless person when it comes to eternal life, and that he must have made more than one Horcrux so that he would stay alive, even if the diary was destroyed. So yeah, this diary and what Dumbledore finds out about it is a huge turning point for Dumbledore, even though we might not even see it yet. And I wrote an article last week about this Horcrux. It's all about Tom Riddle's diary, where it came from, what it means to the narrative of Harry Potter, and why it might be my favorite Horcrux. And you can check out that article if that's something you're interested in. It was a really fun one to write, and a lot of you left really great comments that I enjoyed, so thank you for that. And speaking of comments and articles, this week our article is huge and so fun. I love testing out theories and talking about maybe things that weren't in the book that I think could have happened. But the article this week is about a comment that I was sent by my friend Parker, who asked, what would have happened if Tom Riddle had been successful in this book? If Ginny had died and Tom Riddle from the diary would have gained a human body, what would that mean for the book series? Would that mean that Voldemort had returned? What does this mean for Voldemort in Albania? Like, would there have been two Voldemorts running around at some point throughout the books? I'm not going to talk about it here because this has been a huge chapter and we have talked a lot. And also, I go into it in a lot of depth there about a couple of theories I think could have happened if this Tom Riddle had gained a body and had been back. What do I think that could have meant for the rest of the book series? So yeah, check that out, and I would really love to hear your theories as well. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm completely wrong? Do you have your own ideas about what would have happened? Let me know in the comments. Last, we have Dobby's Reward, which this chapter is named after. We get connections to Lucius Malfoy in the diary, and I'm not going to talk about this too much because I already have, but this was all Lucius Malfoy's fault. Like, he intentionally did this. He knew what he was doing. Despicable. That's all I'm gonna say. Harry tricks him into giving Dobby a sock, and it frees Dobby. He is a free elf now. And I wanted to bring this up. What about in the movie of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, when Lucius Malfoy, he raises his wand to Harry and says Avada? Like he's gonna cast Avada Kedavra on Harry Potter right now in the hallway of Hogwarts. I just think that was a crazy choice to put in the movies. Every time I see it, I'm like, what on earth? Jason Isaacs. But Harry is chasing Lucius Malfoy down because he wants to give the diary back to him. And when I first read this, it confused me a little bit because I thought that Dumbledore kept it to examine, but I guess that's just something that happens in the movies because in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Dumbledore pulls out the diary and shows it to Harry, and you see the big hole in it, and it's when he's explaining Horcruxes to them. But here, Lucius Malfoy takes the diary, and I can't remember if somehow Dumbledore has it back in the 6th book, or if that's just the movies messing with my head. But either way, I think it's really weird that Dumbledore was just like, yeah, you can give the diary back to Lucius Malfoy. Like I said, he says that he suspects Horcruxes after this diary situation, so wouldn't he want to, examine it a little bit. Like, he hasn't gotten to do that. Harry just gave it to him. I don't know. I just thought that was weird. I think he should have kept it to check it out a little bit more. So, Dobby is a free elf. He hits Lucius Malfoy with a spell that throws him down some stairs, and that was really satisfying. And you get the sad line where Harry says, "Never try to save my life again," which is sad because we all know what happens to our friend Dobby later on. A brave elf. Now, I think we need to change for our end of a book feast, which happens in the middle of the night in this book, which I think is very fun. So, let's get to it. Got my robe on that I wear to the end of book feast because I guess this is happening forever. Every single time we reach the end of the book, you're gonna see my college graduation robe, which is getting some use. But the end of the book is full of so much happiness. You got no exams, Hermione and Hagrid come back, there's no more Lockhart, and it really makes you treasure the ends that you get in these early books because later on, especially like the fourth book on, it's tainted by what lies ahead, the danger that's coming. But here for now, we get to celebrate the end of the year with not as many worries as we get in the later books. And as usual, we end with the gang going back home on the Hogwarts Express, such an important train that just symbolizes so much. We've already talked about this, so yeah, it brings us to our last paragraph of the book. "This is called a telephone number," he told Ron, scribbling it twice, tearing the parchment in two and handing it to them. "I told your dad how to use a telephone last summer." "Hell no. Call me at the Dursleys, okay? I can't stand another 2 months with only Dudley to talk to." "Your aunt and uncle will be proud though, won't they?" said Hermione as they got off the train and joined the crowd thronging toward the enchanted barrier. "When they hear what you did this year." "Proud?" said Harry. "Are you crazy? All those times I could have died and I didn't manage it? They'll be furious." And together they walked back through the gateway to the Muggle world. So, the end. I guess this means it's time for another dance party. It is the end of the book! We finished! Oh god. I just embarrass myself in these videos when I'm editing them. So that is the end of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Cheers to you for sticking around through this journey through the second book. Next week, I'll actually be releasing 2 videos. One will be a review of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. You might remember that I did that for Sorcerer's Stone, where I just sit back and talk about what I thought about the book this time around, if I've changed my opinion on it, which I definitely think I have for this one. I feel like this is a very underrated book, and I will tell you why whenever I make that video. So that'll be coming out next week, as well as chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And it's really hard for me when we start a new book because I automatically want to say Chamber of Secrets, but we're in the Prisoner of Azkaban now. And here's a little sneak peek of it. And this is a high-ranking book among Harry Potter fans, so I'm really eager to read it again. And honestly, I think that Prisoner of Azkaban is when Rowling really started to hit her stride as an author. It's when we get a lot of mystery, and her reveals are just so dynamic, and the action scenes are great. From here on, I think that Rowling really just came into her own as an author, and we see repeated themes and the way she writes certain things that come back, especially in the third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth. I don't know, just the way she's able to do mystery is very good, and I'm excited to read this book. I will also let you know if this is my favorite book. I'm not going to tell you until we get to it. So at the beginning of our video for chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, I will let you know if this is my favorite book or not. Tune in to see. And that's all we have for today. Again, thank you so much for joining me through this second book, and I'm excited to start the third. I cannot wait to see what is to come next. So pull out your copy of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, because we will be getting to that. I'll keep you updated on social media as these videos and articles come out. So be watching that, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.